largement suffisant pour un live, je pense. Je ne dis pas que je vais le faire en une seule partie. Je vais attendre qu'il y ait un peu plus de monde qui rejoigne tranquillement. Si vous voulez me poser des questions en attendant, on va mettre la musique un peu plus forte si vous voulez, histoire de se détendre. Tranquille. Et donc, ouais, MrAlberto qui je voulais d'ailleurs faire une Waker HD. Et c'est lui aussi qui a le pouvoir du monde. Donc, incroyable. Donc, comme je vous dis, je vais donc un peu plus de monde. Tranquille. Peut-être que je vais mettre le chat. Ça vous dit. Je pense que ça vous dit. On va mettre le chat, ça va être cool. Voilà, j'attends qu'il y ait du monde qui arrive tranquillement et on commence le speedrun commentaire qui va durer 2h50. Je sais pas si je vais le faire en traite. On verra bien. Ça m'a l'air bien. Ouais, tout mis un petit peu trop. Bonjour à tous ceux qui arrivent. Salut Mine. Comment vas-tu? Super, très bien. Très bien, ouais, ça m'a l'air super aussi. Et bah écoutez, hein, on va se lancer ça tranquillement. Et puis c'est parti.
Good. So I'm going to be doing commentary
Alors,
over
vous me
the
dites,
run that I just got,
si
explaining
le son
things
du jeu est
to
trop fort,
people
mais je
who
pense
don't know so
qu'il
much
soit
about
plutôt
this
bien
game.
réglé, là.
And so
Moi,
without
j'aurais
further
apprécié le
ado,
micro, bien
this is the
entendu.
speedrun. So we start off with the run. We can actually skip cutscenes in this game. So
Donc, c'est du Zelda
anytime we need to skip
Twilight
a cutscene, we can just double
non
tap
HD.
the start button. That's faster than watching them.
Alors,
What we're gonna
avant,
do
on
is we're
faisait
gonna
un
first-
skip
we're gonna
avec
take
le
this boulder
cheval,
over
mais
to the
il
gate over
se
here, and that's
trouve
going to allow us to
que la
clip into the
pierre
gate.
permet
Basically,
de
the
skipper la
boulder
première
prevents us from
porte que l'on
falling
ne peut
out
pas
when we
franchir
start up.
normalement,
And then
et ce qui va
with
lui
the ball, it's
permettre
actually
du
random
coup
whether the clip
d'accéder au
works. So
pont
the first one
direct.
you see it doesn't work.
Là,
But
c'est un peu foiré.
eventually you
Il a
do
mal placé
clip
la
if you
pierre.
try it enough times.
Il suffit de
Just
faire des
gotta
sauts sur le
bonk
côté
and hope
un
that you
peu
clip through.
précis.
And then,
Et normalement,
when we're on
on
the other
passe
side, what we're gonna
par les
do
collisions
is
parce que la porte
soft
fait des
reset
mouvements de
at the
va-et-vient.
same time as it voiding out.
Il saute dans le
And
vide,
so,
il reset la
that
console.
basically, that's
Il
frame
faut le faire
perfect.
à un
That
temps
allows
assez
me
précis.
to, instead of voiding out on the in the regular
Et
game, we
il
void
va
out on the title
apparaître
screen.
donc,
That
du
gives you
coup avec
control of
sa
Link.
tenue
And then we void out
qui est
again so that we
logiquement
can save work.
dans la
And that,
cinématique
what that's
d'intro.
basically doing is I'm now
Et
copying
cette
over
cinématique
the
d'intro
title
faisant
screen file.
partie
So
du
the
moteur du
title
jeu,
screen here that you just play on, that
eh
actually
bien il
occurs
faut
on a
donc,
certain save file.
le
Now
jeu
we're on that
pense
save file and we get access to the
qu'il a
properties of
récupéré
whatever
donc
it
la
was on
tenue,
the title screen. So
l'épée,
first of all,
le
we spawn
bouclier.
here for some
Bon,
reason.
n'empêche qu'il va devoir
We
faire
spawn in
quand
Fair
même
Worlds. I guess that's where the title
les
screen takes
sanctuaires et
place.
tout.
And
celui de la
we
forêt.
get different properties. So you also
Comme
notice
récupérer
Link
le
now has the
boomerang
sword and the
qui est un
shield. So
item un peu
that's
cheaté
so that Link has that
dans
for
ce
the title
jeu.
screen. The other thing is that Ordon is in a different state now.
Mais qui
So
est
when we go back to
formidablement
Ordon
beau à
later,
voir.
we'll notice that it's in the
Pas de
advanced
soucis,
state.
à tout à l'heure.
So that's
façon, il y a
gonna skip a
2h50.
lot of the intro. So normally,
Donc il
you're
va
supposed to
récupérer
go
la
through an entire
lanterne.
intro. You're supposed to get the
Il en aura besoin
slingshot.
pour
You're supposed to get the
cramer
wooden
les
sword.
toiles d'araignée.
And we're just gonna skip all of that. And immediately
Les
we're gonna
roulades,
be heading
c'est un peu
towards
de
the
frame
cage
perfect, donc
to
sur ce jeu
free
c'est
the
plutôt
child and the
cool.
monkey that are trapped in the cage. And so this normally there's supposed to be
Et
background
on va
music
faire
going
ça
on like
tranquillement. Donc là c'est du 80% bien entendu.
And
On
so
va pas
that
faire le
is not
low
playing because
pourcent
we
qui est
never
beaucoup trop
activated that mission. But if you come over to this area, you can still free them.
Et on va discuter en même temps.
So we're
Donc,
here
comme je vous l'ai
early.
dit, si vous avez des
All the
questions,
roles in this game,
vous
it's
me
very important to
demandez, je
roll
réponds.
frame perfectly. So when I
Quel est
roll,
l'avenir
I
de
press
la
the A button. I
chaîne?
try
Quel
to
est
press it on the
ci?
very
Quel est
first frame
ça?
available. It's
Quel
very
âge
important
t'as?
up
Vous savez
slopes
quel âge j'ai?
because when you're going up a slope, Link's speed will drop after
Donc là, il va
a
pas
lot,
s'amuser
even after
à
a single
s'affronter
frame,
au
and then
monstre,
you can never
il
get
va
that back
chercher
for the
les
rest of the
éléments
time of being on the slope.
principaux.
But when you frame perfectly roll on the
Donc là,
slope,
il
you
va
keep
avoir
your
besoin
speed
d'une
for a
petite
lot
clé.
longer. Because normally Link rolls
pour
a
ça
lot
qu'il va dans cette
slower up
grotte.
slopes, but you can keep that for a lot longer if you frame perfectly roll. So I try to do that as much as possible.
Il n'a pas besoin de tuer le
So the beginning of the run, just
ouais, c'est des moblins,
going
c'est
through
pas des
these
moblins, ça.
areas.
Tu vas faire un speedrun de Théo.
It's actually quite a
TOTK?
bit laggy, so it's harder to roll frame perfectly, especially when there's lag.
Moi
Like right here, it's about to lag quite
non,
a bit.
ça me tente
And
pas.
I have to
Je suis pas
press
très
the A
fort, je
button
pense.
slower because if you press it
L'avenir
too
de la
early,
chaîne.
then Link doesn't roll.
L'avenir de la chaîne, écoute.
So
Il
you
va
can tell
bientôt
if
y avoir un
everyone's frame
nouveau PC.
perfect by seeing if the
Et
HUD
ce
in the
nouveau
top
PC va nous
right, the
permettre
buttons, if they stay dim.
de jouer à des jeux qui seront bien plus graphiques et qui vous feront bien plus
And right here, what you
plaisir,
just see is
ainsi que le
I
montage,
will
qui
roll
sera aussi de
and then
meilleure
wait and then
qualité.
roll again. So
On
that's
passera peut-être
the
même de la
fastest way to roll
HD
from a
à
startup.
une meilleure qualité.
Because from a startup, if you
Et
have
on
no
pourra
speed, you can get a slower speed roll
sûrement
and then walk for a
s'entraîner
bit
sur
and
des
then get a
speedruns
full
de
speed
Twilight
roll. So that just
Princess
saves a
d'ailleurs
few
ou
frames
Wind Waker
over
HD. J'aurais apprécié
retaining all
large
the
pour ça.
rolls together immediately.
Donc l'avenir de la chaîne, c'est s'acheter un PC. Après le matos, j'ai tout. Hein. J'ai la
So a
caméra,
good cage break
j'ai le
time is sub
micro,
4, so definitely
mais il me manque
not the
juste
best
un bon
start.
PC game.
The best I've ever gotten is the 355, so there's a decent
Bon là, il
bit
libère
behind that, but lots of gameplay left.
l'enfant
So there's a
avec
lot
le
of
singe.
RNG
Avant,
coming
il
up
y avait une
in
technique
the
avec
run.
le perroquet.
The part
Mais
that we're about
bon,
to do is,
le perroquet, il est
hurting
long
all
à
the goats.
tuer les mobs.
and the goats have quite a bit of
Ouais,
RNG.
ouais,
So
c'est super cool.
the way the goats
Bah de toute
work
façon,
is
le
that
but, hein, c'est d'évoluer. Hein. On va pas
you
s'arrêter
can
à
move them
6100 abonnés.
by
Hein.
getting
On va
close to them.
continuer
How
à
close
essayer
you have
d'aller
to get
jusqu'à...
to any specific goat for them to
Allez,
move
100 000.
is RNG. So they could be spooked very
En
easily.
croisant bien les
So you
doigts.
don't have to be very close to them at all. They could be the
Après, il y aura
default, the
peut-être des
regular,
invitations
normal,
à certaines
or you have to get
conventions.
really, really close to them
Vu
to
que j'ai
get
été
them to
invité
move.
dans les
And that
locaux
can
de
be really,
Google,
really annoying because that
il
sends
risque
them
d'y
on
avoir des
seemingly
choses.
random paths sometimes. So you gotta really hope that they don't get
Donc
spooked
on
too
verra
early.
bien,
So
je
I'll
vous
show you an
dirai.
example.
Donc là, il faut être très optimisé pour rentrer les brebis ou les chèvres qui ont un comportement pas si aléatoire
Good
que ça.
RNG here.
Tant qu'on les prend bien
I'll
par
show you
l'arrière,
coming up on one of the goats later. You'll see this goat,
logiquement, elles
right
rentrent
there
si
on
on
the
le fait
left.
bien.
I was nowhere near him, and he, when I whooped, he went into the pin. So that was an
Ouais, ça
example
prend
of a
du
goat
temps.
that got
C'est
spooked
tout.
really, really
Mais
easily. You had to be
je me
really
fous pas la
far away
pression
from him.
vis-à-vis de ça.
But you didn't have to be very close at all.
Les
and
gens
he
aiment,
was
les gens
you.
aiment pas.
But sometimes you have to get
Il y a
really,
tellement de
really
chaînes
close.
YouTube de
So yeah,
vidéos.
sub 18 is a pretty good goat's time.
Moi, je suis
Best I
gentil, je suis
believe is
pas
like a
méchant.
15, high 15. So now that that's done, that's another
On verra
RNG
bien.
part of the run.
Mais objectif, ouais.
Now
100
we
000
have to, we're gonna go to bow. So this is something
Même
you're not supposed to be
plus,
able to do for a long, long time,
On va
but
dire,
the
c'est
flag for
l'étape
being able
suivante.
to get iron boots from bow, the sumo
Alors là, très
wrestling,
important.
that is supposed to be when you tame opponent,
Il y
which
a un
is
bug
after
avec
you
le maire
complete the Elden
qui
Twilight
est
and then
un
opponent is on a rampage and then you
entraîneur pour
tame
le
her.
sumo.
Well, because we're playing on the
Et en
title
lui
screen
parlant
file,
plusieurs
that
fois,
file already has opponent tame. So now we just
ça va
talk to them. Now
activer
it's interesting
une
here.
scène qui
The
est
text
normalement
boxes are kind of
beaucoup plus
broken
tard
up.
dans le
Not
jeu
exactly sure why
et
that
qui va
is,
nous
but
permettre
basically,
d'avoir
I
les
have to
bottes
talk
de
to him
plomb
over and over and
très
over again
très
too.
très très
But
tôt.
eventually he'll cycle through all the text boxes.
Et
But
ces
that
bottes de
works,
plomb donc
no problem.
elles sont très utiles.
And so we're going to start the sumo
D'où le fait
wrestling,
qu'il
and
les
this is
récupère, sinon
another
ça ne
big
servirait à
RNG
rien.
part of the run. So by RNG I mean it's random.
Donc le
So
fait de lui parler plusieurs fois, c'est vrai que c'est pas
in the first phase,
intuitif.
there's 3 things Bo can do.
Mais du
Well,
coup,
there's 4
il
things.
vous
He can do
emmène.
nothing,
Bon
he
là,
can
il peut y
dodge,
avoir
he
un
can
peu
grab,
de
or he can
troll
slap.
dans ce combat.
And we want him
Dans ce
to
combat.
dodge or do nothing. So I'm always gonna go for a slap, and so he slaps, so we
fera des
kind of just
vidéos de
trade. But
challenge
now he
où ça
moves
dépend
to the
quel
side,
challenge.
and that slap will hit him. So I can
Je
one
vais pas
cycle
faire
him
des
off
trucs
the
à
ledge
la
with the
Jules
slap.
Game.
So that's why I always go for a slap first. But actually grabbing, going for pressing
Mais
A,
oui,
so I'm slapping his
certainement.
B. If I press A instead, that's
Ça
actually a
dépendra.
higher
J'ai déjà
chance
fait
of
des
working,
challenges sur
but it
Breath of the
doesn't
Wild.
push him as far. So I actually go for slap first all the time. Here you want him to dodge, and we got it. So basically,
et sur Mario
I kind of
aussi.
already know mapped out what all of the odds are of him doing things. So that's why you want to choose the right
on
option.
verra.
But even then, the odds
Comme de
aren't
toute
that
façon,
great.
comme
Like,
je
it's
vous
a
dis,
1 in
vous êtes
2
la
chance
communauté,
first
vous
phase that he
proposez
does
des
what you want
choses
him to do, and then it's a 1 in 4 chance
sur le Discord.
that he does what you want him to do in the
Ensuite, il y a
second
des
phase. So
votes.
it's not that great of
Et
odds.
celui qui a le plus de votes gagne.
So decent iron boots actually
Le
got a
jeu que
gold
je dois
there.
faire.
That gold I had not been able to get that
Donc ça y
gold
est,
there, which
il
is
a
basically the
récupéré les
best
bottes de
segment, the
plomb.
best I'd ever done that segment because I
Très
could
pratique.
never get the odds for bow, but finally I was
Ouais,
able to
j'ai
get
mis
it
mon
this time.
petit chapeau de speedrun
So
commentaire.
now that we've beaten bow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the game. This is very important for later. I'm going to save the game in this
Donc
order
ouais,
state.
là
This
il va
is gonna be used
utiliser
for a trick
plusieurs
way later. So
fichiers
just
de
keep in
sauvegarde,
mind
c'est
of the
important.
save file. I'm also
Parce
making
qu'il y a
sure I fill
un
in
espèce
all
de
of my
back
save
in
files. So I
time,
started with
comme
all
dans
blank
Skyward
save
Sword.
files, and you want to fill in all your save files because the very
Ce qui
first
est,
save you do
très
over a blank
pratique.
save file is faster because you don't have the prompt of overwriting the save file. So it saves a bit faster. It saves a few
Vous me dites
frames
s'il y a
throughout the run.
des réglages de son à faire.
As
mais
I
je pense
mentioned,
que c'est-
Ordon's already in its completed state, so I really didn't have to do the first goats.
Bon,
I didn't have to get the slingshot
normalement là
or
il va
sword or
retourner
target practice,
dans
any of
la
that. We
forêt.
can just
si
go
je
straight
dis
to
pas de
becoming
bêtises.
wolf.
Il va passer d'abord aller chercher
So quite a bit early to be
la
doing this
zone de
stuff in the
l'esprit.
run.
Là je trouve très
This is,
très long les démarches dans les tunnels,
we're supposed to be-
surtout là de
It's supposed to
princesse.
take a bit longer to do this, but without the intro, you see we're already here.
Ce qui est bien dans le jeu, c'est
at
qu'on peut
8
passer les
minutes, we're already
cinématiques.
turning
Et
into
ça c'est
wolf.
cool. C'est pas tous les Zelda qu'on peut le faire.
So there's a little time save. It saves about 3 frames in this area. Right when you gain control,
Voilà.
what you can do
Transformation en
while
loup.
it's
Enfin.
feeding out into a cutscene, you can perform a full combo and have
Donc
that
là il fait des
last
petits
hit of the
mouvements
combo break the
à gauche
box.
parce qu'en même temps
And that
c'est
basically just skips you doing a B
il
attack.
y a un peu d'attente.
And because you can dash
C'est une
instead, it saves about 3 frames. It's
cinématique
a
qui se
really small
déclenche
time
au bout
save.
d'un
but
certain temps.
might as well.
Puis après il a plus qu'à péter le truc pour passer en dessous. Bon ça vous connaissez si vous avez joué au jeu. Hein. Là le but ça va être d'aller voir Zelda
So wolf controls are a bit
qui
wonky.
est en mode
When you
dark
dash,
avec une capuche et tout.
Link has to turn before dashing. So like right there, I had to wait before dashing because he
J'adore
was
les
face
contrôles
left.
de
So if I
Link
dash
dans
as
le jeu.
soon as
Ils sont
possible,
quand même
he always dashed directly forward. He never
fluides.
dashes at he can
Beaucoup
never
aimé.
do
C'est
an
un très
instant
bon jeu.
turnaround. So you have to
Y a rien à
wait
dire.
for him to turn before dashing in certain places, or else he'll just bonk the wall.
Donc
because
là
he'll
bon
dash
bah il
forward
connaît les égouts
when
par
you need him
cœur,
to
hein,
turn
donc
first.
il sait ce qu'il doit enclencher ou pas.
So
Attends,
for
le
example,
loup a
doing a
le bouclier de
180 degree
base.
turn. So like right here, I'm face kind of
Oui.
away from where I want to
Oui.
go. So I have to turn
Mais c'est juste
before
qu'à ce
dashing.
moment-là du
or
jeu
else
il
I'll
est
just
pas
bonk the
censé
wall.
avoir le bouclier.
Just gotta wait just a tiny bit of time. It's mostly notable for 180 degree turns because when you dash, Link has to completely turn around, so often he'll just do this weird wide circle instead of dashing directly in the direction you want.
Bon bah il va activer les trucs pour vider l'eau, réactiver l'eau. Vous connaissez la chanson.
Another thing to notice is I'm making sure I'm refreshing my dash. I'm always keeping my dash. So right here I'm gonna do a dash cancel, which is pressing A then B very quickly. And what that does is it refreshes my dash so that I can dash instantly when I hit the ground.
MrAlberto il a le record du monde sur ce jeu. Et je voulais faire aussi Wind Waker HD. Et c'est lui aussi qui a le record du monde sur ce jeu. Wind Waker HD qui est beaucoup plus court à commenter. Donc c'est pour ça que j'ai voulu commencer par celui-là qui est quand même le plus long. Donc là il a fait exprès de se foirer parce que bah il y a
fall down, but actually kind of I went too far left, so I have to jump down again. It was to try to avoid this midnight text, but I kind of botched it. Had to go all the way around again. So here you notice right there, I was actually able to jump a lot quicker after that text. It's frame perfect. You can press A
Alors bien
in
entendu,
a
il va y
one-frame
avoir des
window,
tricks
and it skips this animation of Midna kind of going towards the
il
ledge
s'occupe
before
pas
you
des
can jump.
monstres,
I kind of just mashed for it. I just mashed the A button and hope that I get it on the correct frame. So we'll see another one coming up later. So there you can't do it. It's only after text boxes.
Là le but c'est d'aller
so here there's one. So I'm going to
au
try
combat
to
final,
mash
même
A.
s'il y a quand même
So that's the animation. I did not get it that time. But that animation I was trying to skip of Midna going to the ledge before jumping.
Je sais pas si vous avez déjà regardé le Twilight speedrun.
There's supposed to be a Midna text there, but if I do a frame perfect right after canceling, right after canceling the cutscene by pressing the start button twice, you can then perform a frame perfect jump attack to skip a Midna text there.
On ne reverra pas de sitôt.
And here again, making sure I time my dashes correctly, that
Donc
I
là, il
always
essaye de faire des
keep
tricks
dashing,
de
so I'm
jump,
never
il va sur
losing
les
my
côtés
dash.
surtout.
If I dash,
Là où il y a le plus de hauteur
either
qui lui
A,
permet
do
de
it
ne pas
very close
activer
to a
le
ledge,
Z
or
pour
B,
que
I
lui
do
donne un
it so
autre
far
dirige.
from the ledge, but by the time I reach the ground, I can dash
Il
again.
évite
And
les
if all else
monstres.
fails, if I do lose
il
my
rentre
dash, maybe I lose it
dans
for
la
a
salle.
split second. It's faster to B attack than running for a little bit, because B attack has
Très bonne
faster
chose.
speed. So if all else fails and I lose my dash because I just have to, I B attack, so that I don't have to walk for a bit. So these are just a bunch of things to make sure that I'm always moving as fast as possible as Wolf, and not just kind of walking, waiting for my dash to refresh.
Alors bien entendu, vous pouvez liker la vidéo, c'est gratuit.
And here, you notice I've been doing this a good bit. Jump
Tu lives
attacking
sur
into
Twitch?
triggers.
Non,
So there are
parce
triggers
que
that
si je live
they
sur
trigger
Twitch, je vais
mid-air,
devenir
but
partenaire
you
avec
lose your
Jeff
speed if you
Bezos.
trigger them while on the ground.
Et je ne
But
pourrai
you
plus
can
faire de
move
live
just a
sur
little
YouTube.
bit of distance as the trigger
Et vu que
happens
je suis
by
concentré
jump
sur
attacking
YouTube,
into it. So I've done that a few
et que
places.
les
And I
lives
just wanted to
YouTube,
point that out
ils
there.
sont en train
So
d'être
now that
assez mis
we're
en avant
here, we
et
actually
assez
can't get the sword and
évolutifs.
shield. So this is where you're supposed to get the sword and shield.
Je
You may
pense que
notice
je
I
vais continuer sur
have it on my
YouTube.
back.
Twitch,
First of all, it's slow to get it. Second, we can't even do it
je fais pas ça pour l'argent.
because of
Je sais
the
que
we put
Twitch est
Ordon
plus
in the
facile.
specific state from the back
Mais
in
au
time.
moins là,
I
avec
actually
YouTube,
cannot
vous
even
avez
get the sword and
ce qui est
shield.
bien,
So
c'est que vous
instead, what
pouvez
we're going to do, we're going to
revisionner
do the skip
la
for the sword and
vidéo
shield,
sans que j'ai
and that's
besoin
going to involve a
d'enregistrer
trick
ou quoi
called
que ce
the
soit.
long jump attack. So this is the
Coucou,
first
Garen.
place you're going to see in the game.
J'espère que tu vas
Long
bien.
jump attack is a fast attack. It's a
peut mettre
fast
des
jump
cœurs.
attack that you do off of enemies
Famille
or
cœurs.
anything you can target. So we're going to use this Bulbin. We're going to bring him over to the trigger, and then we're going to use him to jump attack over the Midna trigger that's supposed to prevent you from reaching Fair and Twilight early. So there you go. Very, very precise trick. Actually, that made it look easier than it is. It's because that was
Morgan.
very
J'espère
fast.
que tu vas bien.
I got very good RNG. So you want him to attack. You can't even do the jump until he attacks. So you want him to not attack, and then you need to push him into the correct position. When he gets into the correct position, you jump attack him, and then at the correct time you jump attack again. And that second jump attack is going to be a very high speed jump attack compared to the regular one. And that gives you enough speed to go over the ground trigger and then reach the loading zone and skipping Midna from sending you back.
Assez récurrents dans le jeu, qui sont d'ailleurs uniques,
So
qu'on ne
now that allows
retrouve
us to
d'ailleurs
enter Fair and Twilight.
nulle part ailleurs.
And if that didn't
Même pas
work,
de
we
référence sur
literally
Breath of the
could not
Wild
do
ou
back in
Tears
time
of the
because we
Kingdom.
literally can't get the sword and shield.
Fort dommage, mais bon, c'est des bêtes de l'ombre.
So this is the first Shadow Beast fight.
Oui, alors, quand on les tue pas tous
Shadow
en
Beast
même
can
temps,
be kind of annoying. You need to
l'un
get the
a la
last
capacité
two
de
or all
réveiller les
three
autres.
grouped up, and sometimes they just don't really want to cooperate. Sometimes it's faster to kill one
voilà.
and then two, and sometimes it's faster to do all
Toujours
three.
en
It really
tuer
depends.
un, puis ensuite les
But
deux
you
ou
have to
trois
make
autres,
sure
ça
that
dépend.
your midnight charge defeats the
Et donc
last
ça,
two.
c'est des
Or
points de
if you're a
téléportation.
human, you want to make sure your spin attack defeats the last two at the same
Et là,
time.
il faut
or
savoir
else
qu'il est dans
the
la
last
zone
one alive roars and then
de
brings the
l'ombre,
others back to
la
life.
zone obscure.
So here, we didn't even get the Elden
Qui n'est
Vessel.
pas
So the
pareil que la
not the Elden Vessel, the
claire,
Fair and Twilight
par les
Vessel.
voiles et tout
We're
ça.
not even gonna beat Fair and Twilight. Nice bonk there.
Donc là, il va passer
We're not gonna beat Fair and
par
Twilight.
le
Oh,
petit trou.
here you're gonna
Ça,
notice a
c'est la
frame
strat
perfect
normale.
dash. There we go. So that there's a one frame window where.
Bien
so
entendu, vous pouvez
when you
partager la vidéo
finish
pour que
the game,
des gens
Min is supposed to
rejoignent le
then
live.
hop on
C'est
Link's
toujours
back,
plus
but there's a
convivial
one
qu'il y ait
frame
plus
window
de gens.
before
Même
Min
si je
does
sais
that
que
that you can
d'ici là,
input
il y
a
en a qui
dash.
vont rêver parce que il y en a qui mangent à cette heure-là.
So I got it both times there. So we're just going through Fair and Twilight. So we're gonna end up escaping Fair and Twilight. So normally you'd have to beat Fair and Twilight, and then you have to go
là,
through the purple mist and get your
il va
lantern
faire les
sword for the
jumps
monkey, and then
parfaitement.
go to
Alors il faut savoir que
Forest
donc,
Temple. We're not
dans
gonna do any of that.
tout la speedrun,
So
il
we're
n'utilise
going
pas
to
le
be
lock
we're gonna
de
be going to
Midona.
Forest Temple
Il le fait,
without even clearing.
il le fait directement
But
sans
first,
ça.
we're gonna be getting
Ça
the
demande
Master
une
Sword very
dextérité
early in
incroyable.
the game. So
Et
this is a
une
really
chance
big
aussi,
sequence break. The
limite,
Master Sword you're not supposed to get until
provocatrice.
way later in the game. You're not supposed to get it until after you've beaten
C'est quoi vos Zelda
Lake
préférés?
Temple, which is the third dungeon in the game. Instead, we're gonna get it before entering a single dungeon, and that's with a super jump from a midnight charge. So if we push up against one of these shadow beasts and he does the correct attack,
Moi, c'est
we can
mini
just barely land on the wall out of bounds here. So these midnight charges, they have a lot of speed, and so you can
Donc là, il va
get
faire
them
un
angled
trick.
upwards if you do them correctly.
Il va sauter
There we go. So we actually got to
et
this out of bounds
ça va lui
area,
permettre
and then we
d'aller
can
sur le
jump
rebord
over a
pour,
gap, and then reach
dans un terme, on va dire,
the
être
landing
out of
area,
bound.
and then enter
Et du coup, il va aller
the Sacred
directement
Grove really early
chercher
in the
l'épée de
game.
légende.
And so you have to be wolf, so that's why it's kind of
Ce qui va lui
wonderful that this
permettre
even
donc de
works.
se
It's kind of
débarrasser
crazy because you can't howl at
de
the
l'espèce
statue
de
unless
truc
you're
qu'il a sur le
wolf.
front
You have to be wolf
et
for this
qui
to even work.
va lui permettre de se transformer en loup et en
This
lynx
was
quand il
mega
a besoin.
patched in HD. This is not possible to do in the HD remake version. This is the Gamecube version, by the way. This is not the Wii version. The
Donc,
Wii
ouais,
version
version
is a
Gamecube, comme
different
je vous ai dit-
speedrun.
comme je vous
But actually,
disais,
the only difference
parce que la
between this and the
version,
Wii version is that the Wii version you can't LJA. You can't do the
Wii U,
long jump
elle
attack.
est trop longue.
There, I climbed really far left, and you
Donc
actually
ouais,
found a solid Wolfling popped up in an instant.
la forêt
That's
perdue.
because if you grab kind of
ouais,
into a
c'est ça.
wall and you're a Wolfling, Link will just climb up
Donc il faut aller
instantly to kind
poursuivre
of make it so that
le
he doesn't climb
trompetiste.
into the wall.
J'appelle ça un
So
trompettiste
that
qui
is
invoque des
faster than
marionnettes à chaque
climbing
fois.
normally because it skips the entire climbing animation. You're gonna see a few of them throughout the run.
Pour toi, c'est Twilight Princess? Oui, c'est un très bon jeu. Après, pour les glitches, ouais, moi, pour les glitches, ça serait, ouais, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time et Wind Waker, je pense. Peut-être monter un tout petit peu le son. Ouais, c'est bon.
So nothing special here, just running around as wolf. Gotta make sure the angles that I take are as tight as possible. You see me hugging walls as closely as possible, just to make sure I'm taking the shortest distance possible. Just little things to think about to save frames here and there. Then here what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really late B attack, aim to the left. So I'm trying to, I want to make it so that this attack that I do on Skull Kid lands me on the ground, because then I don't have to jump off the ledge. I'm already on the ground. And I aim it left because that's towards the area where I want to go. And now you can see that, as it turns out, Skull Kid just does this magical disappearing act. He doesn't run all the way. He kind of just goes behind the corner and disappears. But I reached him so fast that we got to see him disappear. So it's kind of funny you can do that.
Combat de mini-boss, on va dire. Le but du jeu, ça va être le toucher tant de fois.
And here you're going to see an example of me losing my dash. I do this on purpose. So you saw there was a little waiting time where I had to do the next dash. That's because I had not done a dash cancel, which is basically dashing off of a ledge or dashing and then B attacking. I dash, wait a little bit, and then B attack, and then I still had to wait a little bit of time before I refreshed my dash. But luckily it doesn't lose time there because I have to wait anyway. So I'm kind of just taking a path here to make sure I always hit the skull kid at the same time right after he breathes. I have to wait anyway because he'll just teleport away if you jump attack him too early. So that all that movement I did just around in the like an kind of like a ellipse shape path was just to make sure that my timing was correct. Now this puzzle is considered one of the hardest puzzles in the game if you don't know the combination already, which I do. So luckily I just have the correct solution memorized, and it's always the same, and makes the puzzle pretty easy because it's literally always the same. Just for show, I like to, there's a 2-frame window after each jump, during or before each jump, that you can input a sense. Doesn't do anything, it just looks cool. Try to get all of them. They're all 2 frames. Does not accomplish anything besides looking cool. Oh, I just failed one. Oops. Well. Oh, just failed another. Well.
Et voilà, il a terminé. T'aimes pas Julgan ou Wing? Je t'ai dit, ouais, non, je suis pas fan de lui.
Alright. And now we have gotten the Master Sword at the 21-minute mark, when normally it's supposed to take well over an hour to get this. So very early in the run. I'll go over in a second why we do this, but it is actually, it saves a lot of time throughout the run. I believe it's about 20 or so minutes that this sequence break saves. Not possible on the HD remake version. The way they patch this sequence break on the HD remake, which is on the Wii U, is they, first of all, they added a gigantic wall to the out of bounds area that prevents you from going too far. As soon as you get up top, you're just blocked by this gigantic wall. And secondly, they changed the way the Shadow Beast attacks. So that attack, well, actually, there's 2 different attacks you can do. There's an over the head swing and a big wide swing. The big wide swing is the one that we want, but they removed the big wide swing on that Shadow Beast so that he only does an over the head swing, which you cannot get to the out of bounds area. Though I believe I saw somebody in the Discord at one time say that they did get out of bounds with that jump. So that might not 100% be true, but I at least know that the way that we do in the speedrun, we really want him to do the wide swing.
Donc ce qui va être pratique, du coup, maintenant, ça va
it is definitely at least easier, but apparently the other way is possible too. So, but it's really that big wall, that big gigantic wall that's preventing the HD version from ever getting to the Sacred Grove, because it's just too big and there's no way to get around it.
En fait, si vous voulez.
Why do we get the Master Sword this early? What is the purpose? So it actually serves a bunch of different purposes, and each of them you'll see all throughout the run, well, throughout the beginning of the run. It's going to save a bit of time in different places. So for one, we're about to do it right now. This allows us to, this unlocks warping anywhere. So normally you can't really warp anywhere, but now we can just call in and warp instantly. So that's really useful for one. For 2, we can now transform into human whenever we want. So that's going to allow us to be human in Twilight. And that is going to be combined with a glitch we're going to see later, the long jump attack. That big jump we saw as Wolf to enter Fair in Twilight, the Sword and Shield skip, we can do that as human too. And that's really useful when you have the boomerang, because the boomerang lets you do it almost anywhere. So you don't need an enemy to do it, you just target the boomerang, basically. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to head to Fair in Twilight. We are in Fair in Twilight. We're going to head to the Forest Temple. And in the Forest Temple, we're going to go get the boomerang. So that's our goal right now, is to go get the boomerang, and then we're going to leave. So now actually going to complete the Forest Temple. So this time, we're not going to go around the purple mist. We're going to go straight through it. And this is going to look kind of funny because we're in Twilight. So when you can still use the lantern to clear the mist. So here we're gonna become human in Twilight, which again you cannot do. So we're gonna use the lantern to go through, and it's gonna look really weird. You're not gonna see the fog actually clear, but it is clearing. It's just visible. You don't visually see it. So it looks kind of weird. It looks like we're going straight through. It looks like we should void out, but actually we're clearing it by those swings that we do. and back to the same area where we did sword and shield skip. This time we're going to actually defeat the shadow beast because that's required to get to the forest temple. This time we're going to do it as human. You're not supposed to do this as human. You're supposed to do this as wolf. Just got to make sure that my last spin attack defeats the last two in one hit.
Maintenant avec l'épée de légende, vu qu'il peut faire des attaques tournoyantes.
So, you remember that save that I made earlier, way earlier in the run? I made a save right after defeating Bo. Well, that's going to come in handy here, because that's used for the trick called boss flags. It's a really complicated trick, but it starts by performing the same back-in-time glitch that I performed at the very beginning of the run. So it's, we can void out in this next room, and then we can soft reset on the same frame. And trigger the back-in-time glitch to gain control of Link on the title screen. We're gonna make sure we save first because after I perform all this, I actually want to get back to here at Forest Temple. So it's very important to save first. And once we're back in time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this pretty complicated thing, which basically involves jumping down and voiding out, and then there we go, and then loading up that save file that was at Bo. But now for some reason, some complicated reason, we spawn in the King Bulblin fight. And then what I did there was I started the fight. So I entered the fight, and then as I was entering the fight, well, as I soft reset, to go back to the title screen, I entered the fight. So basically the game thinks I'm in the King Bulblin fight. So now I'm playing the game and the game thinks I'm in the fight. And so it's gonna think we're in the fight for a good bit. So what that does is it activates a glitch called the boss flags glitch, which you get in the King Bulblin fight. And so that is going to allow me to have all of the monkeys freed. So that boss flags, it's just this interesting flag glitch that gives you all the monkeys. Does a few other things too, but that's what we're mainly going to use it for, because then we could swing across to the area where we get the boomerang and skip freeing all of the monkeys in the dungeon. Now this is really annoying. You're supposed to have the slingshot here to defeat these two spiders, but instead you can kind of throw nuts at them. The throws are really specific. That's why I stood in very specific spots. But you can skip throwing the second nut. The first one you can't skip. You need at least one of those spiders killed. You can't get up there. You can kind of avoid the second one, but it's really annoying and it's really RNG dependent in which way the spider faces. If it's facing towards you, you can't go because then it'll attack you. And so now we're gonna go straight to Ook, and so you see now that I go through this loading zone, now you can see all those monkeys are tamed. That's because of the boss flags glitch that I had activated earlier at the start of the dungeon. Now all we're gonna do is we're just gonna simply swing across, which you're definitely not supposed to do this early. You're supposed to then backtrack and then free all the monkeys, but fortunately they're all conveniently freed for us. So here's actually another example of how the Master Sword, the early Master Sword glitch saves a lot of time. This fight is supposed to be in 2 phases, but the Master Sword deals double the damage of the regular sword. So instead it's going to be 1 phase. That's going to save a good bit of time. And we're going to see that later too. There's the Master Sword dealing double damage, making fights faster. There I did a jump attack quick spin. So the quick spin deals double damage, so does the jump attack, and that quick spin double hit there. So I did a jump attack and then the quick spin hit twice. And then all I had to do was do a simple stab, and that was enough damage. The jump attack's quick spin is performed by doing a jump attack, which is holding target and pressing A, and then spinning the stick midair. And then on landing, you don't even have to press B for it. Link will perform a grounded quick spin. You can also do a quick spin on the ground by just spinning the stick and pressing B. And you can spin either way, clockwise or counterclockwise, and that'll change what direction Link spins in the game. And that'll be useful for later, so just keep that in mind. So, the boomerang, this is the only place in the entire game the boomerang talks, so it's just kind of funny that it does. Now we're going to save and quit. It's going to take us back to the start of the dungeon. When we save, we're just going to soft reset. And that skips the quitting out to the title screen. So now that we have the boomerang, we have everything we need from this dungeon. We're not actually going to beat it. So normally, warping the bridge in the Elden Twilight to get to Kakariko, which is where we want to go to Kakariko. That's one of the places where we want to go next. There's a bridge that you need to warp from from Farron, from North Farron. And in order to warp that bridge, you have to beat the forest temple. But we are not beating the forest temple, so there must be another way, right? Well, there is. It's the power of the boomerang long jump attack. So with the boomerang, we can now do that same big jump as we did as Wolf. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the power of the early Master Sword to transform into human, and then we're going to use the boomerang to escape Fair and Twilight. So this is the same thing as Sword and Shield skip, where there's this Midna trigger on the ground. It's very precise, very precise. But if you have the exact perfect position, you can just barely jump it. You can long jump attack over this trigger that prevents you from escaping Farron, and then now we can get to Hyrule Field without having beaten the Forest Temple or having cleared Fair and Twilight. So big sequence break there, and you're going to see it again later in the run, because we're going to warp back. So we're going through Hyrule Field, we're going to take a right, we're going to go towards the Elden Twilight first. This is the first place we're going. And so there's supposed to be this mailman trigger where he goes, hey, and then he runs up to you and gives you mail. Well, we can skip that trigger by, again, doing a long jump attack over it. So just the gist of how a long jump attack works as boomerang, with the boomerang, if the boomerang's out of bounds, which you saw there, it was out of bounds, then, or if it's over a ground that is higher than the ground that Link is standing on, it will make Link do a faster jump, much faster jump than a regular jump attack. And you don't want to press target. Actually, you automatically target the boomerang. So if you press target, you press the L button, then that actually breaks the target from the boomerang, and then the trick doesn't work. So you actually just pull sword and press A. You don't even hold target at any point to get the trick to work. It's actually pretty simple to do. Just make sure the boomerang is out of bounds or it is over ground that is higher than the ground that Link is standing on. So now we're headed to Elden Twilight. First place is the Gorge. So this Gorge, this is where you're supposed to warp the bridge. Well, we're not going to warp the bridge because that requires beating Forest Temple, and as I mentioned, we're not beating the Forest Temple. So instead, we're going to do another LJA, long jump attack, over it. But first, so when you first trigger this cutscene, it's supposed to force warp you away so that you warp the bridge. Well, we don't want that. We want to go straight to Kakariko. So instead, what I'm going to do is there's a 1-frame window right there. There's a 1-frame window where you can perform a jump attack to in between the two cutscenes, so that you void out and respawn in the area, which prevents you from warping away. That's important because while we're here, we want to go to Kakariko Village. Failing that 1-frame trick loses a minute, because then we have to come all the way back here and then finally go to Kakariko Village. So here we're going to skip the gorge. The first part is called Rupee Roll. We're going to take this rupee and put it on top of this fence. And then that way, when we're going to LJA onto the top of it, that basically gives us rupee text. That happens the first time you get the rupee. And then we can perform a roll, because otherwise we just slide back in bounds. And that roll puts us on the other side of the fence. So now, when we're in the correct position, we can LJA all the way across, and now we've effectively skipped the gorge, which skips warping the bridge. So then we can head straight to Kakariko Village and skip that entire thing. Right here, I'm panning the camera up. I'll see me do that a bunch of places in Twilights, because there's a lot of lag, and that's just a lag reduction strat, is panning the camera up. Now here I have to be careful to go around this trigger. There's a trigger there that causes you to fight King Bulblin, but I need to make sure I go around it. I'm going to go around it twice, actually, on the way here, and then I'm going to be going on the way back. I don't want to trigger that fight, so I go in a weird path there around it. So this is going to look kind of weird. I am going to get to Kakariko, which is where you get the Elden Vessel. But then after I beat the Shadow Beast, I'm going to make this warp, and then I'm actually going to just go back to the gorge. Now, why is this important? Why do I need to go back to the gorge? So, as I mentioned, the gorge, when you trigger the cutscene, it warps you away. Well, that, not only does it warp you away, but it also triggers something called map warping, which is basically pulling up the map and then triggering the warps and warping, which is different from calling Midna, because when you're warping from pulling up the map instead of calling Midna, this is necessary way later in the run in order to warp the cannon. So we have to activate this. In order to warp the cannon, which the cannon is required to enter City in the Sky, we have to activate this trigger. And now that we're ready, now that we've done everything that we want to do, we've gone to Kakariko, we've activated the warp, now we can do the force warp away after this cutscene. So now this is a forced warp. We have to warp away. We're going to go back to Farron. We're going to go to South Farron. And then we're going to perform Farron Escape again. And then we're going to go to Lanayru and perform more sequence breaks. So again, this is basically deja vu. Same thing. Gonna do forest escape once again by LJing over the trigger using another thing to mention that you may notice. This is true for all first-person items, not just the boomerang. So really in this run, actually I think it's just boomerang and claw shot. I don't think it's all first-person items. But what I'm doing is I'm pressing C up before pulling and boomerang. So you just saw it there. You
Normalement, vous m'entendez mieux.
That's faster than just pulling the boomerang regularly. That saves a good bit of time. You're going to see that with claw shot as well. There's another way you can, you can enter faster, and I'll mention that later. But that's basically by holding target. Now, you're going to see that later in the run. You can hold target and then press the item. And that also works as well. Faster than just pulling the item. You hold target, pull the item, and then let go of target. So again, headed to the left. We're headed towards Lanayru.
De rien, y a pas de soucis, c'est pour vous que je fais ça.
And so Lanayru has this big fence in the way. So we're gonna do a sequence break to get to Lanayru.
Bon là il va y avoir encore beaucoup de balades avant de passer aux choses sérieuses. Là ce qui va être intéressant c'est qu'il va réussir à skipper la porte. Parce que les portes ont un système de recul d'avant en arrière et ça lui permet du coup de passer au moment où la porte bouge. C'est un glitch très facile à faire.
And then also don't mind the sky, it's green, don't worry about it, it's okay. The sky is just green.
Donc là il saute directement dans le lac Ilia.
Yeah. Anyway, so now we're in Lanayru. So we're also here as humans, so keep in mind, as human we can sink down. That's something that's very, very important. Because we're going to perform a big sequence break to reach Lakebed Temple early.
N'oubliez pas de liker la vidéo s'il vous plaît.
And so to get there, you're supposed to
c'est gratuit.
Get the Zor armor and the
et je vous donnerai de l'argent au pire.
And bomb the entrance. But what we
alors
can do
là, il va faire un skip. En gros, il y a une zone de collision qui est un peu bancale, on va dire. Et ça va lui permettre de rentrer en out of band pour pouvoir ensuite rentrer dans la zone là où vous voyez justement, qui permet d'accéder au temple de l'eau. Donc c'est une très bonne technique qui n'est pas si simple que ça. Chez Cascon, il avait pas mal galéré sur ça. Bienvenue à ceux qui arrivent. Content de vous retrouver.
So now, when we save and quit, this is only because I have the Master Sword. This allows me to skip swimming from the start to here. And that's important because I don't have the Zor armor. The Zor armor is the only way to swim from there to here. So because we have the Master Sword, we can skip the Zor armor. Otherwise, that save warp would not have taken me there. That's why, and another very important thing about early Master Sword is it allows you to reach Lakebed early and skip the Zor armor. So we're never going to be getting the Zor's too much.
Mais donc il va pas faire ça de la même manière, vu qu'il a le boomerang et qu'il peut faire des sauts un peu abusifs. Et bah il en profite. Les jump slash et tout, c'est juste super fort dans le jeu pour skipper des choses. Bon là il y a un monstre, mais bon, on passe. Pas besoin de le froncer, ça fait perdre du temps. Et là, ça va être aussi du grand n'importe quoi avec le boomerang. Il va skipper la plupart des choses, mais il va avoir besoin du piaf, du célestin, je crois.
We don't have everything we need to beat this dungeon. So I'm actually going to be getting Uku, which is basically a shortcut that opens up that allows you to enter and exit a dungeon. So this cute little chicken, I don't know if you call him cute, but basically he allows you to warp out of the dungeon. And then you can call him to warp back in.
Et ce célestin, bah, ça va permettre quand même de faire des allers-retours beaucoup plus rapides.
That's because Morthiel, the boss of the dungeon,
Et quand on regarde comme ça, quand on joue en quasi, on se dit non, c'est de la merde, mais au final, non, c'est très pratique. Donc ouais, là, il fait un jump slash, il glisse, il arrive à tomber là où il veut. C'est très dur à faire. La glissade sur Zelda, c'est pas comme dans Mario, hein, c'est très difficile à contrôler.